Hey guys, so Frances here, and I wanted to share with you 3 side-ish facing yoga poses. This is inspired by a friend of mine, Joe Miller, in the yoga world. I appreciate a post that he just recently put up that was talking about whether or not you should have your pelvis really fully squarely facing to the side. He gave a pretty detailed breakdown of the details involved anatomically. This is not the first time I've heard of this. I know for years, Jason Brown, a friend of mine, has been talking about this and written articles about it, and showed really specifically anatomically why if you effort to have your pelvis facing directly to the side, and then you effort to go into Warrior Two, and there are a couple other poses that are related to that, it's really not great. It could be a setup for compression in the back hip. If you look at the sort of ball and socket, I'll just kind of demonstrate like this idea of this ball and socket. I'll do like this: the ball and socket joint in the hip, and the acetabulum, the socket for the hip, right at the back of it. Then there's like a compression that can happen when you go sort of bone on bone in the back leg. And when that happens, that's not good for the back hip. But also, if you try to really square your pelvis off to the side, there's no way you're going to be able to keep that front knee directed right over that second toe, which is what we want. So I want to call these side-ish facing yoga poses, because if you think of the pelvis facing relatively side, but not all the way, then that is really a good goal. And it allows for better alignment in the back hip and in the front knee. So 3 poses I want to talk about today that are all kind of related and all side-ish facing yoga poses. So Warrior Two, pelvis is side-ish, right? Your collarbones can face directly to the side, right? And as you come into that pose, because you have rotation at the spine that's possible. So Warrior Two is number 1, all right? And then the second one is triangle. So we can come into that from a modified side angle. And then the same thing with the pelvis, like relatively side facing, okay? We can turn the head to look up. Okay, and the third one is half moon. So the pelvis, again, still relatively side facing, because if we try to face directly side, we'll lose the standing leg, right? So as we go into a balance, right, your pelvis is relatively side facing here as well. Okay, so let's say we're going to use a yoga block for the last one. We're just going to break down how to come into these 3 poses with a little bit more detail. So Warrior Two, we're going to start with some space with our feet from side to side. And we're going to step 1 foot back, find the front knee roughly over the front heel, right? As you look down at your front inner knee, right, as you're looking down, right, if the knee usually tries to veer inward toward the big toe side of your mat, you're trying to have that knee directed over the second toe. So what you can see here is that just beyond the horizon, as you look down beyond your knee, you should be able to see your big toe. That's kind of one guide point that's nice to work with. So the back foot in Warrior Two is not as important to have it as sharply angled as it would be in Warrior One. And in Warrior Two, you're okay to ground the outer edge of your back foot. So the action is a lateral rotation of the thigh bone at the hip socket. And when you ground the outer edge of your back foot in Warrior Two, you're working that lateral rotation in the back thigh, that feeling of lateral rotation, the action that you're working there. And then one arm forward, one arm back, collarbones facing side, and you can look over the horizon of the front fingertips. Okay, so that's Warrior Two. Now, as we come into triangle, remember we said we could come in from our side angle, modified side angle. What I want you to think of is the pelvis, as though you're spilling water. If your pelvis were a bowl, we're tipping that pelvic bowl to spill water toward the front edge of our mat. We can think of increasing the hip crease. That's going to allow your side waist on both sides, especially the top, but both sides really, to stay long, right? So increasing that hip crease first, before we then lengthen the front leg. So we're going for inner thigh stretch here. And you can have your hand on your shin bone, or you can have your hand on a block, or I often like to use even more than one block on this one. But we use one block for now, okay? So still relatively side facing, but not all the way. Now on this one, you're gonna wanna make sure that on the first one, we had the knee directed over beyond the second toe. We could see the big toe just as we look down there. Now on this triangle pose, we want to make sure that we're not rolling that front thigh in, right? So what we want to think of is the kneecap, right? Efforting to be directed forward. So it's a lateral rotation feeling in the front thigh as well. So that your kneecap right now is not pointing toward your big toe side of the mat, but really that little feeling of lateral rotation helps that kneecap still be facing over the second toe. You want to also have some weight in the ball of the front foot. If you're flexible, especially if you have the weight just pouring into the heel, you risk sort of jamming your knee back into the back of the knee area there. So I want to make sure you have weight into the ball of the front foot. Okay, you can even slightly give yourself a micro bend if you're feeling any discomfort in that front knee. Oftentimes a little micro bend will help there. Okay, so grounding, right, lengthening, and then we're going to go ahead and rotate through the entire length of the spine to eventually turn that head to look up. That's our triangle pose. Okay, now still relatively side facing, we're going to move our way into half moon. Take your top hand to your hip, look down, bend your front knee, and step the back foot forward just a little bit. Take that block, you're going to line it up with the pinky edge of your front foot and move it forward a little bit. We're going to shift our weight forward and see that knee stays directed over the second toe. Right, so knee stays directed over the second toe. I'm going to just move my foot back a little bit here, and we're going to start to shift our weight. And I like to oftentimes on this one, just work with the tracking of the knee and just shifting your weight and just getting to the tip of the toe on the back foot and then coming back down and shift tip of the toe and come down. I'm really just training the bottom leg here to stay directed knee forward. Oftentimes, again, depending what's happening in the body, right, you might have that knee veering in, right? You got to work your stability in that standing leg, and this is a great way to do it without even coming to the full pose. And lastly, we shift the weight into the front foot. We've trained our direction of that knee, and we start to lift the back foot. Nice flex of the back foot, right? And we're going to go ahead and from here, stay long through the torso. Your back foot is flexed, and instead of going directly parallel to the floor, which is one way to do it, you can get a little more work for your upper outer glute, your gluteus medius, right? By efforting to lift that back foot even higher. So, right, so lifting the back foot higher, 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 high as you can. So you can really feel that. Now you are efforting to maintain the most important part of this pose is your standing leg, right? As the standing leg is stable and steady, as you effort to rotate the pelvis to face relatively side, you're going to get the gluteus medius working on the bottom leg. But then again, as you work to lift that back leg up, 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 even higher than parallel to the floor, then you're going to get out of it a little more upper outer glute, your gluteus medius, getting nice and strong there. So both of those, both sides working. First, bottom side, again, keeping that stability, and then we're working to have that little bit of rotation of the pelvis side-ish, and then the top leg reaching up, 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 and then you really feel that gluteus medius working as you do that, okay? So that's a couple of poses now that are relatively side-facing, but not all the way, right? So you will keep your joints safe and get a little more freedom of movement in those poses. So I hope that's helpful, and I want you to have the best day moving forward. Take care, guys. Thanks so much. Mwah.